Hello, everybody. This is Tim Tolka of Free Word Associates. And today I want to talk about how I achieved my dream of living abroad as a writer. This is something I'd been thinking about for 2 decades. I wanted to live in another country and not have to go back to the US. I didn't know how to achieve that. I didn't know how to get the money going to where I wouldn't have to return to the US and sell my labor to companies. I was living in San Francisco in 2020, 2019 actually, and I was a teacher at a business school for foreign students, and I loved my job. It was fantastic. But it wasn't what I wanted, and there was no future in it. And definitely no future living in San Francisco, which um, for those of you who don't dream of working in tech, there's nothing for you in San Francisco. Um, so I was trapped pretty much, and I didn't really know where to go to escape, but I knew that where I was not where I wanted to stay. So I took a week vacation in Mexico City, which I had never been to Mexico City, but during my 20s, I'm in my 40s now. During my 20s, I had traveled to 30 countries, spent 3 years abroad, all like in small increments for the most part, because I could never find a way to stay. I always had to come back. And even learning foreign languages, like I speak Spanish, I speak Portuguese, I used to speak Italian. It just didn't really, I never had the patience to work, to do a work visa in order to work for a foreign company. And I didn't want to teach English abroad because, no, I did at some point. But I wanted to be a writer and live abroad. But to be a writer, you have to keep making money. You have to get people to pay you to write. You have to sell books that you write or screenplays. And at that point, I was just a moonlighting writer when I left San Francisco. So I quit my job with $2,000 saved, and I left San Francisco. It was a big step. It was very sad. My students were super bummed because they loved me. And the school was actually pretty bummed because even though my boss didn't like me, they knew that the students were going to be disappointed and they weren't going to have anybody to replace me. They shut down when the pandemic started. So I was really lucky that I left. Um, I had already written a book called Blue Mafia, and I published it, self-published it. It did okay. Um, it made links. A lot of links appear if you search Blue Mafia Tolka, Tolka. That's my name. And I have been a journalist on and off, mostly freelance, although I have a job now as a journalist. So basically, when I left and went to Mexico City, um, I knew that I wanted to be in Mexico City, and I got an apartment there after a month in Airbnbs. And in my Airbnb, I met somebody who inspired one of my first screenplays. So things just started happening as soon as I took the reins and took a risk and did exactly what I wanted to do. I was happier. I started meeting people who brought opportunities. Um, I advertised a lot on Craigslist, and I have a website that was built by one of my clients who I edited his book, and he designed my website in a trade. So there were things that happened along the way that were serendipitous. And if I stayed in San Francisco, it just wasn't happening. But I rented an apartment for $300 a month in the servant quarters of a mansion in the Condesa neighborhood of Mexico City. For those of you who know, it's a really preppy, fresa neighborhood where 40% of the people are gringos. And it's not well thought of. And now people in Mexico City really hate those people, digital nomads, I guess they're called now, who came during the pandemic. Well, I came before the pandemic, and I set up shop, and everybody came later to work remotely, and I was like, "What are you guys doing here? Like ruining my reputation." I moved into a neighborhood where there were very few foreigners, and pretty soon I started seeing the white people show up. You know, um, but now I help other writers, and I write for people who are they want their memoirs written, or producers and directors who are commissioning a screenplay. Sometimes it's amateurs, sometimes professionals. I edit people's work, research, books. I've edited now like 2 dozen books probably in the last 3 years. I spent 3 years in Mexico City and I loved it. It's fantastic. Now I'm in Buenos Aires, Argentina, and I have permanent residency in both Mexico and I will soon in Argentina because I fell in love and married an Argentinian woman. And I have a kid now. We have a kid. You'll probably see her in one of these videos sooner or later. She's not here right now at this moment. But now I can stay abroad and I'm making money that will finance my lifestyle abroad. And that's what I recommend for anybody who is uninspired by their 9 to 5, who's looking to take their passion full time and not moonlight anymore. There's never been a better time, in my opinion, to quit your job, move abroad, and make money through the internet. You can have the money sent to you wherever you are. You would just withdraw it, with your ATM card. And people really trust remote workers now. I don't have any problem getting clients to send me money on Venmo, PayPal, Cash, or Zelle. It's like second nature now, and it's I've been now living abroad like 3.5 years, like going on 3.5 years, and I never look back. I'll probably go to LA with my wife and child soon to be a screenwriter in Hollywood, but it's going to be 4 years abroad has been like such a refreshing change in in my lifestyle that I wanted for 10 years before I took the first plunge to move to Mexico City. So, uh, boredom is your enemy, and the routine is your enemy. Fear is your enemy. You have to challenge yourself and take the risk to do what you're afraid of doing, but which means something to you, which means everything to you. I have a lot of friends that are putting off these kinds of choices or making them like hastily without a plan. I made a plan and it's been serendipitous, fortune falling in my lap since then. So I couldn't recommend anything more than making those choices that scare you and excite you. Signing off, Tim Tolka.